So, here we are. 10 years since the first Monk hit the streets, 13 iterations later. There were more than one graphical style in some years, just in case you were interested. It's the first Shinn board that took the brand to the top of the sales charts, and rightly so. In its day, there was nothing else that could really do what it did. It was a revelation. I used to get people who would hate the hype, only to come back to me a few months later with long faces confessing that they'd been monked. It really did make me chuckle. There have been many updates every few years to keep it at the top of the tree, but the truth is that kiteboarding as a discipline is a very different place to those early days, and for many the rise of big air have pushed the power handling requirements way past what we would have imagined 10 years ago. The truth is, it's now impossible to engineer a single board that will be both at the top of the tree for the lightest and the largest power usage. It's a range that just cannot be spanned in one board. So the Monk had to choose. It had to pick a range within these extremes, and so the Monk did what it's always done. It chose to follow the majority, appealing to the largest freeride segment, and that segment responded with the praise that you would expect. So what's so special about this board? Well, it's a traditional Pavlovnia core, finely tuned in a glass wrap. The rails are thin like its siblings of old, but where this deck differs from its ancestors, it now uses ridges on the hull. These ridges have a very interesting effect. They certainly give the deck a bit more core stiffness, without resorting to additional weight or thicknesses of the laminate. But more than that, they interact with the water flow to increase the efficiency and liven things up. I honestly confess to not knowing why, but maybe it's like the dimples on a golf ball. Either way, the Monk is the liveliest board in the range at medium power levels. The result is a board that has huge amounts of life, tactility and efficiency. If your conditions are lumpy, on shore and your power minimal, perhaps with a bit of tide to suck some fun out of the session, then the Monk is head and shoulders above the rest of the boards in the range. If you live somewhere really hot where there is very little power to the wind, it'll turn whatever you can find into a much better session. It just makes you want to play. It's the antithesis of lawn mowing. Every time you change stance or trim, it reacts positively, goading you into doing something that a normal board would likely complain at, but without ever losing its composure. For the power and speed that it brings, it has a soft feel that ensures that things don't get out of hand or tiresome. Again, if you ride somewhere where the conditions are nasty enough that super high power riding gives you a headache, then drop a kite size and the Monk is the answer. It really does do a good job of everything. Carving, pop, it's stable throughout its speed range without ever being confined or locked in one stance. For the power you are using, your ankles and shins never seem to get stressed. You can ride it like a cheeky little powered up scally for hours on end. There is one Achilles heel though, and it may not be applicable to you at all, but remember at the beginning of this I did say that you can't have one board that will do absolutely everything. And in that, this is not the board for butterflat, extreme overpower, new school big air work. That said, I know many old school riders who still swear by it, so it's not like you can't get decent height at all. Find me a board that can do what the Monk can do in lighter and medium power conditions, and what the ADHD, for example, can do in overpower conditions. Well, you can't. It's two different things entirely. If you go and have a look at my review on the new Absinthe, you'll find that a very interesting board if you do ride full power from time to time. But in truth, the Monk has a certain life and fun to it that even the Absinthe can't match in medium winds. And depending on where you ride or how much power you want to take, I predict that the Monk will still soak up a big slice of everyone's sweet spot. Remember, lastly, as with all Shinn boards, never judge the size of the board by the length. It's only the width you need to compare. Monks have gone longer of late, but this does not denote the real size of the board. Compare your board and all the other boards in the range by their width to discern the right size for your weight. So there you have it. Shinn's board with the biggest legacy of them all. Still very much alive and kicking in 2022. Bringing a big slice of joy to the masses, and rightly so.